Alright, back with another one. What if Goku was raised with the Saiyans? Episode 4. This episode, Goku lands on Broly's planet. So let's get into it and see how that happened. Kakarot's body screamed in protest. Every muscle fiber from his charred shoulder to his trembling legs was a symphony of agony from his brutal clash with the android Tien. Blood still seeped from the clean hole that was in his shoulder, dripping steadily onto the sand. Yet he refused to let even a flicker of pain show on his face. To show weakness was to invite death, a lesson beaten into him since infancy. He stood tall, his chest heaving only slightly, his one good arm hanging loose but ready. His focus was entirely on the bizarre, pint-sized figure screeching at him. The creature's declaration of arrest was so utterly absurd, so disconnected from reality of the carnage that was around him, that a harsh, disbelieving bark of laughter erupted from Kakarot's throat. You? He spat, his voice a ragged mix of exhaustion and pure contempt. Arrest me. You've got a better chance of killing me with that annoying-ass voice. The sheer gall of this insignificant speck interrupting his execution of a worthy opponent was both infuriating and hilariously pathetic in his eyes. Annoyance flared hot and fast in Kakarot's chest, overriding his fatigue. He was done talking. This chattering insect needed to be swatted and quickly. With a guttural snarl, he pushed off with his good leg, becoming a blur of motion in his view. Even wounded, his Saiyan speed was quite formidable. A trait honed from years of being used as living bait against his far faster alien warriors he was sent to conquer alongside the other Saiyans. He expected to close the distance in a microsecond, to feel this Jocko's skull crumple under his fist. But the galactic patrolman didn't even flinch. His movements were eerily calm and economical. As Kakarot lunged, Jocko simply tilted his blaster a fraction of an inch, his body not even bracing for the impact. Then he squinted one eye behind his yellow visors, a look of profound boredom on his face as if he performed this action motion 1,000 times before. The barrel of the gun was now pointed not where Kakarot was, but precisely where his trajectory would carry him. It was a perfectly calculated interception. A searing blue energy beam lanced from Jocko's blaster. Not with explosive force, but with the impossible speed. It struck Kakarot square in the center of his chest. There was no impact, no kinetic blow. Instead, it was a wave of paralyzing, white-hot electricity. Instantly wrecked his entire nervous system. Every muscle in his body seized at once, locking up in agonizing spasms. His vision blurred into static, his teeth grinding together as he choked. A gasp was all he could really manage. The world tilted violently. His legs gave out from under him, and he crashed face first into the sand, his body curling involuntarily into a fetal position as the current continued to course through him. He twitched and shuddered in the dirt, utterly helpless, a low growl of pure, unadulterated fury trapped in his paralyzed throat. The humiliating defeat wasn't from a powerful warrior, but from a tool that easily shut him down because of his weakened state after fighting android Tien. Seeing Kakarot, the frail young man who had toppled the tyrant, writhing helplessly in the sand was too much for Tights. She rushed forward, her hands raised placatingly. Wait, stop. This is all a huge misunderstanding, she pleaded, positioning herself between Jocko and the twitching sand. Jocko didn't even look at her, his blaster still strained on his captive. There is no misunderstanding, Earthling. I am performing my duty. This individual is a clear and present danger to the galactic peace of this galaxy. Tights gestured frantically at the smoldering remains of the battlefield. Danger? He just saved us. He killed Pilaf and freed our entire planet. Jocko adjusted his helmet with a sigh, as if explaining something to a very slow child. A common tactic for aspiring despots. Eliminate the current regime to install yourself as the new one. I've seen it 100 times. He was merely eliminating his competition, Earthling. The paralyzing effects of the blast finally began to recede, leaving Kakarot weak and seething on the ground. Before he could even gather the strength to push himself up, Jocko was on him. With practiced efficiency, the patrolman produced a set of gleaming metallic shackles that hummed with some type of faint energy. He He wrenched Kakarot's arms behind his back and clamped the cuffs onto his wrists. A new low-level energy field buzzed against his skin, depleting his strength, further sapping his already depleted strength. You are hereby remanded into the custody of the Galactic Patrol, Jocko stated effusively, hauling the Saiyan to his feet. You will stand trial for your association with the Frieza Force and acts of planetary aggressions. Kakarot struggled, a feral rage burning in his eyes, but his body was battered from the fight with Tien and now shocked into submission, refused to obey him. He could only grit his teeth in utter frustration as he was helplessly marched toward the odd spherical spaceship that was ahead of him. As Jocko prepared to shove him into the ship's hatch, Tights suddenly darted forward. Wait! Let me just say goodbye to my hero. Before Jocko could protest or Kakarot could snarl a refusal, she wrapped her arms around him in a tight, surprising hug. Kakarot stiffened, his face flushing a dark shade of red from both anger and complete bewilderment. No one had ever touched him like this. What the hell are you doing, Earthwoman? He gritted out through clenched teeth. Tights pulled up closer, her voice dropping to a whisper only he could hear as her hands deftly slipped a small, smooth device into the broken gaps that were in his armor. It's a tracker. Press the button when you're safe. I'll find you. She pulled away, her eyes wide with a performative sadness. Goodbye, my hero, she said loudly for Jocko's benefit. The patrolman rolled his eyes and unceremoniously pushed Kakarot into the dark confines of the ship. The hatch sealed with a hiss, plunging Kakarot into the dim, sterile light of the patrol ship holding cell. He could feel the subtle vibration of the engines through the floor as they lifted off. Through a small viewport, he watched the blue marble of Earth shrink away into the infinite blackness of space. He strained against the energy-dampening cuffs, his muscles bulging, but they held fast, a cold, calculating part of his mind. The part that had kept him alive among the saiyans assessed the current predicament that he was finding himself in. Ripping this ship apart here in the vacuum was suicide. He may have been a low-class warrior, but Kakarot was no idiot. He knew saiyans couldn't breathe in space. He was trapped, a prisoner on a one-way trip to a fate he couldn't even control. His eyes fixed on the back of Jocko's helmeted head in the pilot's seat, a silent promise of vengeance burning in his gaze. Back on the island, Tights didn't waste a second. She gathered the 7 Dragon Balls that Goku had dropped off, or that Kakarot had dropped off for her hands trembling, not with fear, but with urgency. She placed them on the ground and called out the words that felt both ancient and desperate. Arise, Shinron! The sky darkened and the eternal dragon materialized in all its majestic, terrifying glory. Speak your wish. He boomed. Tights didn't hesitate. I wish for my sister, Boma Briefs, to be returned to life and brought safely to me, right here, right now, at this location. A moment later, a flash of light illuminated the beach, and standing there, blinking in confusion, was none other than Boma. She looked around, utterly disoriented. Tights? What in the world is going on? In the depths of space, Jocko hummed a little tune, pleased with his efficient capture. A quick glance at his control panel, however, made his tune falter. A warning light blinked insistently. Tch, of all the times, he muttered to himself. Fuel levels critical. Inefficient. With a sigh, he input new coordinates. Well, monkey boy, slight detour. We're stopping at a refueling outpost. Don't get any ideas. It's a secure facility. The ship changed course, soon descending toward a small asteroid-based station adorned with a galactic patrol insignia signifying protection. Jocko expertly guided the ship into a landing bay, the clamps locking onto the hull with a solid thud. Now, you stay put, he said, pointing a warning finger at Kakarot before disembarking to handle the refueling situation. The moment the hatch closed behind Jocko, Kakarot sprang into action. It was now or never. He couldn't use his hands, but he could use his head. Literally. He twisted his body, aiming his face toward the ship's control panel. He thought of Nappa, of the idiot's brute force approach to everything, of the times he'd seen the hulking Saiyan clear an entire battlefield, not with skill, but with a wide-mouthed blast of pure, undirected energy. Kakarot then began to open his own mouth, and a spear of crackling yellow ki began to form between his teeth. It was an ungainful and wasteful technique of pure desperation. With a muffled roar, he unleashed the Brute Blast, and the blast tore through the console, then through the ship's hull, exploding outward in a shower of sparks and molten metal. Alarms blared throughout the station. Debra chaos erupted into the landing bay. Kakarot didn't hesitate. He burst through the smoking hull of Jocko's ship, his eyes scanning the bay. He spotted a smaller, sleeker scout ship that was nearby. Its owner was a frog-like alien who was staring in shock at the explosion. Kakarot sprinted over and, with a powerful kick, sent the alien sprawling across the deck. He awkwardly backed into the open hatch of the scout ship, slamming his body against the control panel to close it. He then began mashing his head on his shoulders against every button and lever he could reach. The ship engines sputtered to life, and it lifted unsteadily off the deck. Just as he cleared the bay, he saw Jocko running back, blaster drawn. The patrolman took aim and fired, not at the ship's hull, but at its engines. The blast connected, and the scout ship lurched violently, trailing smoke as it careened out into open space. Alarms blared inside the stolen scout ship. The controls were a mess of flashing red lights and alien script that he couldn't quite read. The damage from Jocko's shot was critical. The ship was losing power and stability fast. Kakarot fought with the controls using his elbows and chin, but it was useless. The ship's autopilot, or what was left of it, had already locked on to the nearest habitable planet for an emergency landing, and it wasn't really that habitable according to the ship's data. The vessel shuddered violently as it entered the atmosphere, heat shields groaning in protest. Kakarot could do nothing but brace himself as the ground rushed up to meet him. The ship tore through the strange, green-tinged wasteland, plowing into a geyser of bubbling emerald liquid before skidding to a halt, half submerged in the boggy ground. He had survived, but he believed he was far from safe. Kakarot kicked the damaged hatch open and stumbled out of the alien warship, his arms still painfully pinned behind his back. The air was thick with strange scents, and the sounds of roaring wildlife echoed in the distance. He had to find shelter, to find a way out of these damn cuffs. As he trudged through the thick, vicious mud, a figure emerged from the mist that was ahead. Tall, immensely muscular, with wild black hair. Another Saiyan? The black-haired Saiyan turned, his eyes widening with shock that mirrored Kakarot's own. This was Broly, in the bearing punishing world of Vampa, was the only home that he had ever known. And the sight of another one of his kind here, of all places, was a shock that momentarily overrode the constant, solitary life that he was used to. I'm gonna just stand there. Get these cuffs off me. Meanwhile, back on the Earth, Bulma was rapidly brought up to speed. Tights thrust the scanner into her hands, showing a blinking signal that was already moving rapidly away from Earth. There's no time for a family reunion, Bulma. The guy who saved the world just got arrested by a space cop and he's been taken to who knows where. I need your help. I need you to help me build a spaceship, a fast one, so we can go get him. Bulma stared at the scanner, then at her sister's frantic face, then down at the chip dust on her fingers as she was eating after just recently being revived. Her scientific curiosity warred with her sheer bewilderment. She blinked slowly. Whoa, back up. Start from the beginning. What kind of sibling greeting is that, by the way? You bring me back from the dead just to immediately put me to work? And what do you mean a guy who saved the world? What happened to our world? Tights? So yeah, man, that's going to be the end of this episode, man. Hope you guys liked it. Next episode should be out sooner than later. Anyways, man, I'll catch y'all later on the next one. Peace. Hit that like button, all that.